Yep. Okay. Thank you, everyone. I'm Tom Fitton, F as in Frank, ITTON. I'm president of Judicial Watch. Joining me is Kirby Vining, who is our client in the case we're going to discuss today. Michael Bekesha, an attorney with Judicial Watch, and Paul Orphanides, who is also an attorney with Judicial Watch and directs our litigation department. The spellings of the names I'll give you if need be or after the press conference is over. But Judicial Watch is here to announce the filing of a taxpayer lawsuit to stop Congress essentially from participating in the District of Columbia's Small Business Exchange. And Judicial Watch is a nonprofit government watchdog group known for filing litigation to hold government officials to account, to expose misconduct, and stop it where it can. And today we filed this taxpayer lawsuit against the District of Columbia's Health Benefit Exchange Authority to stop Congress from participating in D.C.'s Small Business Exchange. At least 12,359 members of Congress, congressional staffers, and their spouses and dependents currently purchase health insurance in D.C.'s Small Business Exchange, even though Congress far exceeds D.C. law's 50-employee limit for participating in the exchange. The lawsuit, which also names the Exchange Authority and its executive director, Amelia Kaufman, as defendants, was filed in the Superior Court of the District of Columbia on behalf of our client, D.C. taxpayer Kirby Vining. Judicial Watch's lawsuit cites applications filed by the U.S. House of Representatives and the Senate with the D.C. Exchange Authority. The applications were obtained through a Freedom of Information Act request to the District of Columbia government, and they show that the House and Senate claim to have only 45 employees each. They also show that the House and Senate attested to having 50 or fewer full-time equivalent employees. Congress employs upwards of 20,000 people. D.C. law limits participation in the exchange to small businesses having fewer than 50 full-time employees. The applications also falsely state that the House and the Senate are local/state governments and that as an employer, and the electronic signature section of the application includes the following language: I've provided true and correct information to all the questions on this form to the best of my knowledge. I know that if I'm not truthful, there may be a penalty. But the actual names of the signatories were blacked out by the D.C. Exchange in the documents provided to us through our Freedom of Information Act request. In March 2012, the D.C. Council enacted the Health Benefit Exchange Authority Establishment Act of 2011. Establishing an individual exchange and a small business exchange. In fiscal year 2013 and 2014, the Council appropriated over $77 million in general fund revenues, taxpayer dollars specifically, local, to create, administer, and operate the exchanges. The Judicial Watch lawsuit, which is being filed today, as I said, specifically charges that, quote, since November 2013, the Exchange Authority has allowed the U.S. House of Representatives and the U.S. Senate to use the Small Business Exchange to provide health insurance to members of Congress, certain congressional staffers, and their spouses and dependents, and that beginning in 2013, the Exchange Authority conducted outreach efforts to the House and Senate about Congress's participation in the Small Business Exchange and provided weekly support sessions to assist members of Congress and staff with enrollment. These outreach efforts, weekly support sessions, and Congress's participation in the exchange were discussed at a November 13, 2013 meeting, discussed at a November 13th, 2013 meeting of the Executive Board, and on November 20th, 2013, Executive Director Kaufman testified before the Senate Small Business and Entrepreneurship Committee about Congress's participation in the Small Business Exchange. When Congress applied to participate in the exchange, again, representatives falsely asserted that the House and the Senate each employ 50 or fewer full-time employees. Specifically, records provided by the Exchange Authority in response to our request show that both the House and the Senate falsely claimed that they each employ only 45 full-time employees. And I'm reading here specifically from the lawsuit. On information and belief, the Executive Board and Executive Director Kaufman knew that the House and the Senate each have more than 50 full-time employees and knew or should have known that Congress's certification to the contrary was false. And the lawsuit goes on to detail how 12,359 members of Congress and their staff have obtained health insurance through this small business exchange as of February 9th, 2014, and that these 12,000 plus people represent approximately 86% of the 14,289 members, individuals enrolled in the small business exchange between October of 2013 and September of 2014. So the point being, members of Congress and their staff, they are the small business exchange in terms of the massive numbers and further highlighting the lawlessness of the district allowing them to participate in the way they are participating. Judicial Watch asked the court on behalf of Mr. Vining to declare we're asking the court to declare that the House and the Senate's participation in the small business exchange to be unlawful and enjoin the defendants from continuing to allow the House to participate in the exchange, or at a minimum from expending further taxpayer funds on the House and the Senate's participation in the small business exchange, and issue a writ of mandamus ordering Defendant Kaufman to deny the House and the Senate further participation in the small business exchange. You know, the documents we obtained from the D.C. Health Exchange show that every member of Congress who is enrolled in Obamacare has obtained their insurance coverage and any taxpayer subsidies through fraud. The District of Columbia's government should not be a party to this fraud and should stop allowing Congress to participate in an exchange created for small D.C. businesses. District taxpayers will be surprised and outraged, and I think American taxpayers will as well, to learn that local tax dollars are helping to further this fraud. Mr. Vining, our client, wants the courts to stop this lawlessness as soon as possible. And the documents we obtained, I mean, are really smoking gun documents in the sense they show the district accepting this false information from the federal, from Congress to obtain health insurance. The documents, as I said, highlight the fraudulent nature of the activity, and I'll draw your attention to one of the documents that you'll be getting. Typically, if you file with a small business exchange an application and you're a small business, you have less than 50 employees, on the application form, you have to list the name of every employee one by one, which is bureaucratically ridiculous in some respects, but someone with a small business can, in theory, do that. Obviously, if you have upwards of 12,000 employees, you're not going to be able to do that. So the House handled that thing, that portion of the form, by filling out first name 20, last name Congress, date of birth 1/01/1994, zip code 2012, and that's the only listing they have for the employees covered under their application. Yet, based on that and the Senate's filing, which is similar, the District of Columbia is, without any legal authority, providing health insurance to the House and the Senate, contrary to district law. And with that, I'll turn this over to Mr. Vining, who, if he'd like to make a comment or two, and then we'll open it up to questions. And if my lawyers, Judicial Watch's lawyers, need to clean up anything I said, I'm sure they'll correct anything I said that's not legally correct. But the lawsuit will be available after the press conference, so I encourage you to look to the lawsuit for the specifics of the facts and details. And as I said, the lawsuit also references the documents that we uncovered separately from the D.C. Health Benefit Exchange Authority. Thank you very much. Mr. Vining.
Morning. I'm Kirby Vining. I'm a long-term resident, taxpayer, homeowner in Washington since 1986. I just retired from 35 years of federal government service in 2011. I'm a member of Judicial Watch, and I'm very interested. I was attracted to Judicial Watch because of some of the matters that concern me that obviously concern them, which is we've got laws. I'd like to see our laws either abided by or changed, not dithering in a gray area there. This particular case, as I pay my own health insurance, I'm outraged. I'm very concerned that a responsible health care program be available in this country here, and I'm outraged both that my government is subsidizing this and that the Congress of the United States is calling itself a small business. Thank you.
You have anything? No. Any questions? Yes, sir.
Did you find out how much DC taxpayers are paying for this?
Do we have a specific? The lawsuit references the appropriation specifically. Michael, I'll defer to you.
The lawsuit talks about the $66 million that was appropriated for the exchange. We don't have a specific number of how much money is being used to fund Congress being able to use the exchange, because everything comes out of the general fund. So all the money is mixed together and then it's dispersed.
So there's no way of even, trying to figure out how much.
It could be possible, but based on all the information provided in all the various budget reports, there's a total number coming out of the general fund.
And as we note, 86% of the exchange is our members of Congress and staff. That money.
I didn't get that either, because I thought you said that a quarter of all the 50,000 people were.
Yes, there are 12,359 persons from Congress on the Small Business Exchange. Again, two employers, 12,000 between the two of them. The number of people on the exchange, the Small Business Exchange, are 14,289. So 86% of the participants on the Small Business Exchange are members of Congress and their staff.
Well, if they're a quarter, I mean, you said they're a quarter of the 50,000, right?
I'm not sure we're referencing.
How did they become 86%?
Well, it's 80%. The numbers are whatever I said previously, just to be clear. There are 12,000 participants from Congress or so on the Small Business Exchange. The total number in the Small Business Exchange is 14,289. So 12,000 on it.
So you're saying of the 50,000?
The 50,000 is there are 20,000 staff members in Congress generally. Of those members, 12,000 are on the exchange. Okay. Well, the point being, specifically, members of Congress, there are 12,359 persons on the exchange who are employed by Congress. In the Small Business Exchange, generally, the total is only 14,289. I don't know where. We'll talk later about the 50,000 number, so I don't want to confuse the issue. The point is that 86% of the participants on the Small Business Exchange are from Congress, and so that money that's been appropriated for the Small Business Exchange by the district, obviously the bulk of that is benefiting members of Congress and their staff who there's no legal authority allowing them to be on the exchange. Yes?
So you did say, I'm Penny Starr with CNS News. You did say that you don't have any names on the of members of Congress or staff, no names at all.
Right, they blacked out.
Okay, but who is responsible in Congress for submitting these applications and getting them approved? Do you know that?
Well, I think that's going to be an area of inquiry. Who was responsible in Congress for allowing this false and fraudulent information to be filed with the District of Columbia Exchange in order to obtain health care? I know members of Congress in both parties have expressed concerns about the provision of health care through the D.C. Exchange and the seeming ignoring of Obamacare that would have prevented it, the Obamacare portions of the law that would have prevented that. But they did it anyway, and the House is run by Republicans, and the Senate is run by Democrats. So this is a question for the leadership of both parties. Did they know This is how they got their insurance for their members and their staff.
Tom Howell, Washington Times. Just had a question maybe for Mr. Vining. What would you like Congress to do? Would you like them to change the actual law so this is permissible and they can use DC Exchange? Do you want them to use their home state's exchange? Do you want them to go back to the old federal plan that they had? What would you like to see Congress do outside of this lawsuit?
I would have to answer that generically at this point here. I would like to see our members, the legislators of our country, obey the law as it stands or change it. Beyond that, the procedural part, as I hope will come out in this case, details of why is this being done this way. I would like to see us all obey this. Healthcare is too serious a matter for this kind of gray area in between the law as I read it and what we see actually being done.
And you mentioned you pay for your own insurance. Are you on the exchange, or how do you get your insurance?
Yeah, I'm a retired federal employee. It was, when I retired, I was given a number of options, and they said, this is the plan that you've got. You can keep this if you want. I pay for it. I'd like to see the members of Congress responsibly get a health care plan like I did.
Did you retire early? I understand some people retire early so they can keep their own plan.
There's nothing early about it. See the right here? Yeah.
So,
Mr. Vining, sorry, who did you work for in the federal government?
The end of it was Department of Defense. Started the National Park Service. It's 35 years.
yeah.
As you know, Senator Ron Johnson also sued over this matter. Of course, different set of circumstances, and he got tripped up over his legal standing, whether he could show injury. Can you just talk a little bit more about, is it the taxpayer funds? Is that what you're going to hammer on when you try to prove legal standing?
This is a case filed in Superior Court in the District of Columbia, which is our equivalent of the local state court. And the law in the District of Columbia allows taxpayers to sue in court to stop the government from spending money on illegal activity. And I don't know if you want to expand on that, but it's a straightforward taxpayer lawsuit to stop the District of Columbia government from doing things it has no authority to do under law. And taxpayers under DC law can have standing to pursue that type of legal challenge. I know Senator Johnson ran into an issue with standing as he tried to challenge this, but this is a very different type of lawsuit, and we don't think standing is an issue. Yes.
Mr. Fenton, you mentioned that every member of Congress has enrolled in Obamacare through fraud. So do you know for a fact that every single member has enrolled through the Small Business Exchange?
The members who have obtained the exchange insurance through the exchange, that has been obtained through this fraudulent document. And I don't know if they know that that's how it happened. But the documents speak for themselves. This information is false. It's readily apparent that it's false, so I don't think this is an honest mistake. Obviously, Congress is not a small business, and no other business of over 50 employees is allowed to participate on the DC Small Business Exchange. The individual exchange obviously is only for individuals, and if members of Congress want to obtain insurance, they will, as they can, as individuals in the individual exchange. And I know Congress doesn't want to do that, and I know the president did not want to have them do that. So what they did on their end is of interest, but from the purpose of the lawsuit, we don't want the district money. We don't think the district has the authority to buy into that scam. And these documents show it is a scam. And my gosh, the government that's in charge with enforcing the law, they have to be held to account. And thankfully, in the District of Columbia, taxpayers can do that. And this is why we filed the lawsuit. Yes.
Can you speak more about subsidies that would have gone to members of Congress through this?
Well, the lawsuit specifically is over the District of Columbia doing things that it doesn't have the authority to do, and there's local taxpayer money at issue there. As a result of Congress participating in this exchange, the benefit to members of Congress and their staff is that they are able to use pre-tax subsidy, the health insurance subsidies available through other employers, and use it to help purchase an insurance. Typically, if you were participating as an individual on the exchange, you would have to pay the money outright before taxes, and you would not be able to get the benefit of the pre-tax insurance subsidy that other employees get. And so that's why Congress was outraged about it and didn't like the idea of having to go onto the Obamacare exchanges as the law required, because they would lose their employer subsidy. And they personally would be responsible out of pocket for providing and purchasing insurance for themselves on the exchanges. This is not an appropriate workaround. The law is not being followed by the District of Columbia, and now we're showing that the Congress and engaged in fraudulent activity here, and we'd love to be able to sue Congress. But the law allows Mr. Vining and taxpayers in D.C. to vindicate the rule of law in another way that is as direct and significant, which is to essentially stop Congress from participating in the exchange by enforcing District of Columbia law. Congress can get insurance, but they have to get it lawfully. And the district can provide insurance for members of Congress, but it has to be done lawfully. Yes?
Mr. Vining, can you talk about how you personally became involved in this lawsuit? Did you approach Judicial Watch, or how did the process work?
I'm a member of Judicial Watch for several years now. I first got involved in Judicial Watch as a result of my own engagement in local D.C. electoral politics and the controversial McMillan Park development, and watching certain things in voting, irregularities in voting law. And it attracted me to Judicial Watch because that's one of the many things that they look at there. And then getting closer to them. I'm very pleased with the work that I've seen them done on this and many other matters. I'm very encouraged. I am not a lawyer. I'm not a specialist in these things. And as you heard this morning, there's tremendous procedural details that I'm interested to find out how we can abide by the law or change the law. And these people are helping me understand how that would work procedurally.
Where in the district do you live?
Up near Catholic University.
Ward 5.
Mm-hmm. That's right. And since 1986.
Any other questions? Any additional comments from the lawyers? Mr. Vining? Okay. Well, thank you for coming out today. We appreciate it. And Jill Farrell, who is our Director of Media Relations, will have the materials, the lawsuit that's being filed, I think, as we speak. It's done. It's been filed, so we have the case number. So it has been officially filed with the Superior Court. And the attachments include also the documents that we received through the Freedom of Information Act from the D.C. Health Benefit Exchange Authority. So you have them here. And if you need PDF versions, we'll have links available on our internet site, so you can point to them or download them there directly if you don't grab them here. Thank you very much, and we'll be around for a bit afterwards if there are any further questions directly. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Ad-libbing on here. I hope it was helpful.
That's fine. That's fine.
You know, there's like 50,000 people on the DC healthcare exchange. And you're saying
Small business exchange.
Paragraph 22 is what we're talking about. It's 14,000 people are enrolled in
So
the
this is
exchange.
the total exchange is 50,000. This is just
The 50,000 includes also the individual exchange. So if you break up.
So you're talking about the small business.